Alright guys, so these are my final thoughts on Dark Dimension 5. I'm going to be analyzing my teams which I used on Dark Dimension 5 on my run, and hoping to analyze a bit how things have changed since then, and give you some insights on how to build your teams and how to look at Dark Dimension 5 at the moment. Alright, so first of all I need to explain that things have fundamentally changed. And that's because of Cosmic Crucible Store. We have a significant increase on the teal gear at the moment, and that changes things totally. And by this I mean that before, even though you were probably not racing to get Dormammu as the first person in the world, you were still trying to get Dormammu. At least it was an idea to get Dormammu as fast as possible, according to your style of play, because the edge of Dormammu is the biggest when you have the Dormammu and your opponent doesn't have a Dormammu. So basically you would be crushing in arena if other people don't have Dormammu. You'd be crushing in war when you have Dormammu and the rest of them don't have Dormammus. So there was a reason to try to get Dormammu fast. And before we had serious problem with the teal gear. We didn't get the teal gear as much as we wanted, and that's why we had to think about our build up for the Dark Dimension 5. We had to be real careful on what to build and when to build. So we had to think about balancing our origins. We wanted to use 4 of each origin to spread the resources around as thinly as you could. We needed to think about building your characters lane by lane, so that you would do city before legendary, and sometimes that would be sort of a problem for other game modes, because you maybe wanted to have that legendary before you build up your city teams. Also, you need to think about the cost of the characters. So that was like a big thing. You had to take low-cost characters that had some sort of an impact on Dark Dimension 5 and hopefully some impact outside Dark Dimension 5. But yeah, you were always looking at the cost of the characters. How many teal gears and how many mini uniques and how many origin pieces they were taking. Now we're in a situation where we got so much more teal gear that even though you still benefit from thinking and planning with those in mind, you don't have to stress about it as much. And by this I mean things like you can definitely take like legendary in your first 5, and no need to stress about being stuck in the city nodes because you don't have 5 city characters for a long time. You can take a character that costs a bit more but is super useful outside Dark Dimension 5. But of course, if you're planning and if you're careful, you will still get a benefit, but it doesn't matter so much as it used to matter before the Cosmic Crucible Store. Alright, so that being sort of talked about, let's go into the individual lanes. So of course the first 5 is non-restricted, but you should be still thinking about the lanes. So the first actual lane is going to be the city lane. And let's look at the individual characters that you might want to take there. So we have one rework. Let's go to the city roster. Just a second. Over here. We have one rework. Or maybe we even have a few more reworks. Let's talk about all of them. We have also 2 new characters and a bunch of old good characters. By the latest rework I mean Jessica Jones, but we also had some rework of course on Dark Hunters with Ghost Rider and the Young Avengers with Squirrel Girl. So there's a lot of reworked characters in the near past. To me it feels like the best possible team to be fighting against the city nodes would most likely be Cloak, Dagger, Shang-Chi, Ghost Spider, and Scarlet Spider. That's the best possible team for the Dark Dimension city nodes. There's one problem in that team. There's 2 mystic characters, and there's a lot of mystic characters that you want to build up later on. So, and before I didn't recommend using Dagger in your city lane, because Dagger is quite expensive with 72 mini unique pieces, but Cloak and Dagger are excellent together, and city lane is quite tough. So now it's actually a thing you should consider, taking these 2 together as 2 mystics, even though there are a lot of mystics to be building up later on in the Dark Dimension, but they are super useful in Doom raids, so that's a good reason for them. Now that we got a lot more gear, that's a good reason to build them both up. So yeah, that's definitely one thing to consider. The other thing to consider is that you still want to think about your origins, and City Lane is the one that you got the most usable bio characters by far. So if you want to spread out your resources, it's a good idea to do at least 2 bio characters, and you can do even 3 bio characters in here. So you could definitely do more of the Web Warriors, which are definitely usable outside the Dark Dimension because they are the main raid team in Doom raids. One could argue about taking Spider-Woman in here, or even Jessica Jones, but as bio characters. But even though Spider-Woman is used for the Scourge event, and is most likely super usable in Dark Dimension 5, I actually feel that she doesn't have so much use outside Dark Dimension 5. She's a great plug and play character, but the team isn't actually that good. So I would definitely think about building Spider-Woman if I could go back in time and if I had the resources that we have at the moment. But I would most likely not take her. I would take 3 Web Warriors, Ghost Spider, Scarlet Spider, maybe Spider-Punk, or Spider-Man, the original one. So 3 Web Warriors and Cloak and Dagger. But you can definitely argue for Shang-Chi also because he's skill and he's quite cheap and super powerful and great plug and play character in other game modes as well. Few characters that I wouldn't take that are feeling sort of like a trap. So yeah, the symbiotes are one of those. Even though the symbiotes have actual Dark Dimension 5 synergy, or Dark Dimension synergy in general, I wouldn't take symbiotes in there. They are subpar in other game modes, not usable in most game modes, so definitely a trap. Ghost Rider is definitely a trap. He is the 3rd or 4th or 5th best Mystic character in the city lane, and you just want to use your Mystic gear in other lanes. So yeah, if you definitely want to take 3rd Mystic character, which would be sort of crazy, but if you want to do that, you would most likely take Nico Minoru because you are using that in Scourge events and hopefully in the raids, in the wars. Alright, so there's my thoughts. Web Warriors, New Warriors, those are definitely super usable outside the game. They're super usable in Dark Dimension, so you get a lot of use out of those characters. There's Bio, which you want in City Lane, and be aware of the Mystic characters because, yeah, Mystic is still There's a lot of mystic characters in Dark Dimension 5 that you want to build, so be aware of that. Alright, so the next lane would be Global. And Global has a lot of good characters. Global is definitely the home of skill characters. So if the city lane was home of bio characters, yeah, Global is definitely the home of skill characters. And we have the Secret Avengers here, which is a super good base for your skill raid team in Doom raids. So that's a really good use of those characters. So you usually want at least 2 skill characters, and those should be from the Secret Avengers. I would recommend going for Captain America and Maria Hill. They are both skill characters. They are both in the raid team, and they are both usable in various game modes. The one problem with that is that Maria Hill is actually sharing unique with Kestrel, and you most likely want to use Kestrel in the Cosmic Lane, which will be the next one. So you need to have a bunch of the unique pieces for them to build up them both. But if you can't take Maria Hill, you can definitely opt for Sharon Carter, or you can go for the 3 of them. Other characters to consider here, definitely Doctor Doom. I didn't date Doctor Doom on my first run or even the second run because of mostly that he was a Mystic character. I had a lot of problems getting my Mystic gear on, so I didn't build Doom. And Doom is definitely the one that makes those nodes manageable. He will make a difference, and he's super usable outside Dark Dimension 5, so there's a good base for your team. Sabretooth is actually really good in here, and that's for various of reasons. One being that he's super cheap, he's mutant. You don't have too many good mutant characters in Dark Dimension 5, and if you build Sabretooth a bit bigger than you build your Omega Red, you will have an easier time fighting against the Heroes for Hire in the wars, if that's your counter for the Heroes for Hire. And that's because Misty Knight actually targets the Weapon X character with the most health. So if your Sabretooth is at Gear Tier 16, he will most likely have more health than Omega Red, and then she would be hitting Sabretooth instead of Omega Red. So you don't need to use your Omega Red's ability block on Misty Knight, and you can use it on someone else instead. So there's few good reasons to use Sabretooth in here. Other great characters to use in here: Lady Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike is a tech character. She's super cheap, and she's super useful in Dark Dimension, and she's also part of one of the best teams at the moment in the game, which work in several game modes, mostly in War and in Cosmic Crucible, in Towers, Scourges, etc. You can definitely think about building your Darkhold team in here. The Darkhold aren't that good in the Dark Dimension itself, which is sort of not a problem, because you can get to these nodes anyways. It will just take more time. But if you would take any Darkhold character in here, I would argue that if you have built up your Scarlet Witch to Gear Tier 15, which is sort of a mistake, but if you did that, Scarlet Witch will be the best character in this game mode by herself out of the 3 Darkhold characters. After that, I would say Agatha Harkness. Agatha Harkness is definitely the best character to use in here because she is part of the main team, which Scarlet Witch isn't, because you want to change Scarlet Witch in the Dormammu later on. So Agatha Harkness is definitely the better choice. Wong is not doing much in here, so I wouldn't build Wong for Dark Dimension 6 because it's just super bad in there. Wolverine is definitely an option as well. Costs a bit more than Sabretooth and doesn't have as much use in Dark Dimension as Sabretooth. But yeah, you can definitely take him as well. Some people have been taking Silver Samurai, which I can understand sort of, but I probably wouldn't recommend that because Silver Samurai is the least important character in the Weapon X team, so you want to build up the more important characters first. I've seen some people use the old Dark Dimension characters like Mr. Sinister and Emma Frost. Emma Frost is definitely the better one out of these. Quite expensive and not really great in Dark Dimension. She will just not do much in there. But I probably wouldn't take those guys in. Baron Zemo is definitely a class cannon and doesn't have that much use anymore, so I wouldn't bring him up. So for me, the best possible team will most likely be Captain America Sam, Mariah Hill, Sharon Carter, Doctor Doom and Lady Deathstrike. And yeah, other characters can be considered, but yeah, that's my thoughts about that. I actually went in with Captain America, Sharon Carter, Beast, yeah I know that's a weird one, I just had the gear for him from the Pocket Dimensions, Lady Deathstrike and Wolverine. And yeah, it wasn't the optimal one by far, but yeah, that's just what I went in with. And I didn't use Sabretooth because I used my uniques on Shang-Chi instead of him, and I was just trying to get which one of those, Wolverine or Sabretooth, would I get first, and Wolverine had the uniques before Sabretooth, so that's why I went with him. Alright, so after Global we get to Cosmic, and Cosmic is sort of I would say set. You definitely want to take Cersei and Icarus here, even though they are downtrending a bit. They are still amazing characters. They are amazing in Dark Dimension 5. They're gonna make that node super easy. And you can use these guys in multiple game modes. Tower, Cosmic Crucible, War, whatever, even Arena. They are amazing in all game modes, so do not look down on these guys. They are super amazing. Kestrel is definitely a top character in this game mode. And after that, I would definitely recommend Doctor Strange Heartless, just because he's a Darkhold character and you want to build those characters as high as possible. Budget choice characters which are super usable in other game modes as well are Star-Lord T'Challa and Ravager Stitcher. They have some synergy together, they're super cheap, they work quite fine, but even though they're good, if you have Cersei, Icarus and what's her name, Kestrel, you will notice that the other two characters in the team won't do much. We have a Captain Marvel as a reworked character, recently reworked character in here, and I don't blame you for bringing her in. I actually don't remember her costs, and I would argue that she's most likely a really good character in here, and now she's actually usable in multiple game modes and in Scourge events, so yeah, she could be an option. Other options, I would say Silver Surfer and Deathpool are not options. They're mostly not options because they are expensive and they are Mystic. And you want to use your Mystic on Cersei, Icarus and Morgan Le Fay firstly, and then after that you can do whatever you want. I would say, yeah, skip on Silver Surfer and Deathpool. Doctor Strange is definitely a good one. Philowell is a bio one. I brought Philowell as my one of my characters in the first run because she was bio and I had loads of bio mats and nowhere to use them, so that's why I brought her. Not a great character, does something, but yeah, mostly just because of the resources. Blackbolt got a small rework with the health boost and is now quite usable in other game modes as well. So you could, sorry, Blackbolt is definitely a legendary, so you don't need to think about that. Sorry, that was my fault. I haven't even thought about Blackbolt in any of my runs or any of my lanes, so I sort of got confused there a bit. Let's see. Yeah, Gamora, Moondragon, definitely possibilities. Problem there is that you want to use your skill resources in global, so you will most likely not have enough skill gear to get these guys up for the cosmic nodes. Longshot and Shatterstar, definitely possibilities. They're mutant. They don't do much, and I would probably save those mutant gear for the Unlimited X-Men and even Apocalypse after that. Other than that, I don't see too many good characters that you could use here. Either they are expensive, or they are mystic, or they are just not as good as the rest of the team. So yeah, my go-to team would be Cersei, Kestrel, Icarus, Doctor Strange, Heartless, and T'Challa, Star-Lord. That's my favorite 5. But yeah, the core of the team is Cersei, Kestrel, and Icarus. Alright. Let's go to the last lane, which is Legendary. So let's see if I can find it over here. So I would say that in Legendary there's only 2 set characters at the moment, and those are Morgan Le Fay and Omega Red. And bear in mind that we have Rogue coming up. Rogue might be the best mutant in here, so surpassing Omega Red, but we still have to wait a bit for that. So at the moment, the 2 best characters are Morgan Le Fay and Omega Red, and you should be building your team around those guys. Thinking about resources, Dr. Octopus and Shuri are the tech ones. You could argue for either. I would say that Shuri at the moment has more use outside Dark Dimension 5, so I'm feeling like Shuri will most likely be the better choice. I'm feeling Dr. Octopus might be a bit better in Dark Dimension itself, but the difference is really small, so I would argue that Shuri at the moment is the best tech character. The bio characters would be Blackbolt and Invisible Woman. I would argue that Blackbolt is the better choice because he's better outside Dark Dimension 5. Invisible Woman is, in my mind, better in Dark Dimension 5, but I don't think that's important enough to skip Blackbolt at the moment. The other mutants, being Jubilee and Phoenix, you could use either of these guys. I feel personally that Jubilee is better, and Jubilee is better if your team is built up like my first team. Jubilee doesn't offer much if your team doesn't have control. If your team has loads of control, then Jubilee will be adding to that control so much by herself that the control, okay, not so much, that was wrongly worded. I mean that she will be adding to the total control just enough to make the control like dominating in the Dark Dimension. So I favor Jubilee, but you can definitely take Phoenix if you like. Both are pretty usable outside Dark Dimension 5 as well. Jubilee, of course, falling out of favor because the X-Men by themselves are not that great. Besides Morgan Le Fay, we have few mystic characters in here. We have Adam Warlock and Ebony Maw. I would argue that if you have resources enough to take one more mystic character besides Morgan Le Fay, you should go for Adam Warlock first, and only after that you should think about taking Ebony Maw. And the 4 characters on the lowest row, Star-Lord, Nick Fury, Magneto, and Iron Man, you shouldn't be thinking about these guys at all. The only exception would be that if you happen to have tons of skill gear, Nick Fury can be your 5th character if you don't have anyone else ready at that point. But I would not take him. Even though I would have to wait for someone else a bit, I would not take Nick Fury over someone else. My first team was Omega Red, Dr. Octopus, Morgan Le Fay with 3 yellow and 1 red star, so yeah, from the milestones. I had Jubilee and I had Invisible Woman, and these guys were the bomb. They just annihilated all of the Dark Dimension 5 legendary nodes without any problems. I one shot at the first and second node, and I 2 shot at the last node, and I 2 shot at the last node just because I didn't know that there was a bit of a surprise at the end. I don't want to do any spoilers if you're not there by this time. If you want to look it up, you can definitely find it easily. But yeah, there's a bit of a surprise at the end of the node, and I wasn't prepared for that, and that's why I had to 2 shot it. And on the second run, I actually took Morgan Le Fay to 7 yellow and 5 red, and after that it was just laughable. It was so easy. So yeah, this team was super good. But yeah, the one thing that I've been hearing people complaining about Jubilee and her abilities in there, I feel that those people are right and they are wrong at the same time. Because Jubilee is great if you have a lot of control like I did in my first team. But if you bring in characters like Shuri instead of Dr. Octopus, if you bring Phoenix, if you bring Blackbolt, then you shouldn't be taking Jubilee. You should probably take Phoenix instead, because Jubilee's control alone isn't enough to make the team sort of rolling. So you either need to commit to damage and survivability or control. I opted to go to the control route, and by having a lot of control in my team, the full team and the synergy between it felt amazing. But yeah, my team, well, I think it's the best possible Dark Dimension 5 team in the Legendary Nodes at the moment, most likely. But at the same time, it's definitely not the best one outside Dark Dimension 5, because we have characters like Dr. Octopus and Invisible Woman, and to some degree Jubilee as well. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Yeah, Blackbolt is better than Invisible Woman outside. Shuri is most likely better than Dr. Octopus outside Dark Dimension 5. And for that reason, it might be a good idea to actually bring Phoenix instead of Jubilee in that team. So yeah, something to think about. Well, yeah, that's what I think about Dark Dimension 5. Those were my teams. Those were my recommendations. We have new characters incoming. Definitely have an eye out for Gambit. Gambit is most likely a good candidate for global. Have an eye out for Rogue. I think Rogue could be a good candidate for the legendary nodes. I'm not feeling it for Phantom X or Dazzler. I don't feel like those guys will be doing much. The good side is that they are mutants, and you don't have too many mutants in the Dark Dimension 5. Alright, so tell me, what do you think about this? Did you get anything out of it? Do you think I'm totally wrong? Please let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to answer your questions, your criticism, anything. Please let me know, or just talk trash, that's okay too. And yeah, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, you know the deal, and see you on the next video. Alrighty, bye!